What's up, man?
Hey,
welcome to the cookout.
Hey, welcome back.
Cookout, man.
Welcome back, y'all. Appreciate y'all still rocking with us. It's good to be back, man. Like I said, man, like it's good to see my guy. We talked about it last episode. We don't really see each other like people think we do, man. Moving and grooving. So yeah, man, just quick catch up, man. How your week been, bro?
Man, week been good. It's been crazy, honestly, man. Just with new gig and just trying to get through that piece and man, just trying to keep all the parts moving. Like you said, it'd be a lot to juggle at times, man. And I'd be like, man, I need me a little break. So just trying to, fit some of that in there throughout, little self-care.
Yeah.
Fit some self-care in there throughout the week. But it's been good, man. I feel like everything has really just been moving very quickly, man. Like being we about to be in May.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I feel like in the conversations we've had and where we're at, the episodes we knocked out already, man. So I'm excited about it, man. How was your week?
Man, well, one, congratulations on the new.
Yeah,
like I said,
yes.
Chain hanging out. I don't know who this guy is.
A little something.
Man, Buzz get ready to go to Paris, bro. I'm talking about me and the wife going to celebrate 10, man. Going cue Kanye, Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Us in Paris.
A little self-censorship there for y'all, in case y'all missed that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, with that though, you got to get a lot of things done for work before you leave, just so people will be asking all these questions, man. So just try to cross the I's, dot the T's, whatever. I don't even know if I said that backwards or not.
We'll roll
with it. Yeah.
So
yeah, cross the T's, dot the I's. But today, man, let's talk about it. We talked about like unbig, we joked about unbig and bags, man, and obesity, just in American general, man. And is that tied to diet? Is it you change that with health and exercise, or is it genetics involved in that possibly too with that piece of it, man? So just kind of just diving and talking about that a little bit, man. And I know you had some thoughts on obesity and like where we are in America. So I think it said like 1 out of 3 Americans are considered like obese.
Dang.
1 out of 3. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, man, there's a lot to really unpack here, man, when we start talking about obesity. I think the first piece that you talked about is there's a phrase that they call social determinants of health.
Okay.
And so it basically just talks about like really your environment. What are the things that can contribute, a good way or a bad way to your health? So that really means like your access, your accessibility to certain types of foods, wages and pay.
Yeah.
I think education, not just right now, but what's been passed down to you, from a family perspective. Yeah. So I think, we talked about it before in terms of like, hey, these are the meals that we eat in the family. And you got to think about like not just anything. I think that as you're growing up, right, like you're being molded.
Yeah, for sure.
By whoever's raising you. Not just with food, but anything, like how you treat people, your work ethic. And so with food, I think you become an adult, right? You get out, maybe you're by yourself or maybe you have your family. Like that's really going to play into what you think about cooking. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And how you think about grocery shopping and all those different things, man. So I think that's a piece of it for us to really dive in. Like when you start looking at Black people and kind of really our plight and how we've grown and where we've been, located at, you'll see a lot of those similarities in terms of what those factors are. And then I think, and I've heard a lot, man, I think the, what's it called? The number that they give on that scale that they give you to determine like
your BMI?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, some people like the BMI, man. Some don't. Matter of fact, I think the BMI originated from like a Belgian scientist from back in the day where he was trying to use it to figure out like were soldiers fit enough to go to war?
Okay.
And then that kind of translated into insurance companies. I think like in the 1920s, 1930s, I think it was like Metro Insurance Company or something like that. Don't quote me on that. That's where like they start using that BMI system where the formula is you take your weight divided by your height squared times 703. Don't really know where
I was about to say like
had to take like where exactly where he came
random to me.
Yeah, where he came from. But also too, like if you don't have a calculator, they tell you can calculate it on your own by just dividing your weight twice. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so divide whatever your weight is twice by your height and then times it by 703 and you'll get your BMI.
Okay.
Now, also too, some things people don't like about the BMI. Like BMI also doesn't take into account like your age, race, body composition.
It's just a blanket.
Yeah, just kind of blanket like formula type thing. Because here's the discrepancy in it, man. Is I can be muscular and have the same body composition BMI as somebody who's a little overweight,
right?
And so you'll hear some healthcare people don't like to go by BMI because if you go by BMI, like I'm obese. So like right now, my BMI is like 30, 32. So when you start getting into that 29, 30 range, that's where you become obese. Now anything over 40 is what they call like really obese. They'll
morbidly obese, right?
But I'm glad you said morbid. Like that morbid terms came from the insurance. Like they would determine like your rate to die. Like
right. And if you were that, if there was that numbers like
you morbid, your
insurance
likely probably
die soon.
So like you're calculating like your insurance premium off that just based on that's where morbid obesity came from. That term was from the insurance companies back in the day. Now they say a healthy BMI range is I think between 18 and 24. But like I said, some people like to go with it and some people don't just because it doesn't account for muscle mass. Like I could just be solid, you know what I'm saying, weigh a lot, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
About my height versus my height, and it still say I'm obese or something like that. So also too, it's good to know your BMI, but also too, just know there's other factors in play too as well. So don't just take your BMI as like, man, I'm obese.
Yeah.
No, like, how do you feel? You know what I'm saying? Like, and also too, as I was thinking of us like diving into this topic, man, how do we balance as a society? Because you know, there's a big movement about like, of course, you always should love like who you are, your body, and stuff like that. But like balancing like loving your body, whether I'm super skinny or healthy, like nice little weight size. Yeah. How do I balance like, hey, this is my weight. This is just how I am. I love my body for how it is versus are you healthy? And how is it tough to have that conversation? You know
I ain't even gonna lie. Like I feel like as a society we've become so welcoming of everything. And I think it's a thing of really softness in a way, like not wanting to be real with people. And it's like, okay, you can be, you know, as big as you can, or you can be, you know, even unhealthy looking skinny. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, okay, as long as that's okay with you, that's cool. And I think we've really tilted too much in that way. Yeah. Now, I do agree with you, like, how you feel should be, like, you know your body, right? Mm-hmm. So you know, like, when you eat certain things or when you haven't been eating right, like, especially as you get older, like, your body, you get more in tune. Like, I know with me, like, that was something as I've gotten older and tried to be better about decisions, just about how much I'm eating. Because I know when I was younger, like, man, it didn't matter what it was. It's like, man, I can just put it away any time of the night. And like, there's sometimes we'll like go on vacation. So we'll go on vacation, like you kicking it, you hanging out. And sometimes I'm with, you know, friends or couples that are a little bit older. They're like, man, it's too late for me to be eating. I'll be like, what are you talking about, man? Like, we about to get this meal. But when you're, you know, in tune with your body, you know, like, hey, when I eat, past a certain time, like, man, I feel bloated, or I feel heavy, or I feel sluggish, or whatever those things are. So I think I am a proponent of like, less about the number on the scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our people, mainly black women, have really suffered from what the beauty standard in society has said in terms of how you should look and what your body weight should be. Now, I do think that our women have always been one. I think we were the ones that really embraced how you feel about your body and saying like, hey, our women, I don't know if it's fair to say on average, but I feel like maybe on average, our black women's body have a specific type of body type, right? A little more, thick, curvy, whatever you want to call it, right? And so I think when you kind of go down the road or you go backwards and look at female society standards, they were, based off of white women. And if you go back to the whole European beauty standard of, the straight hair and, being real skinny. And so I think that is the good part of it, is that not being a woman, but, hearing and obviously being married to a woman, like hearing the struggles they have about their body perception. It's good to see that is celebrated. And people are like, man, like I'm not a number on the scale. But I do think that there has to be a thing of, I think the pendulum has gotten a little, too wild, too out there. And I think it has to be like, hey, are you healthy with that weight that you're carrying? Mm-hmm. Are you working through any of those things, seeing a doctor about anything you have that may be affecting any weight issues that you may have?
Speaking of, I think that also, Charles, you said doctor. We don't go to the doctor regularly enough. So like I just went this past earlier this week, man, for my physical. They're like, oh, you had that one since 2020.
Dang.
Yeah, or maybe 2021. But either way, it had been a few years since I had one. And they were like, she did tell me, like, it's a little normal for your age to go a couple years. Like, but when you hit 40, you need to be every year. And I think that's the thing, too, we need to start doing, man, is like understanding, like you said, what's really going on with our body, man. Getting those numbers checked and seeing cholesterol. Because whether we see it or not, it's real. You know what I mean? A lot of us always talk about, like, we joke about all the time, like, man, I ain't feel bad until I went to the doctor. He told me, you know what I'm saying? Like, told me all this. And then that's when I start feeling bad. So we feel like if we don't go, I'm good. Whether, like, we need to be more preventative with it instead of trying to catch it on the back end, I believe.
So where do you think that comes from in terms of why we're not? You think that's a thing in our community, or do you think that's just, like you said, an age thing in terms of just feel like, hey, I'm a young man, the motor's running good? Like, what do you think that is due to?
I think it's goes back to that education and trust. Like, trusting doctors and what they're telling us, you know what I mean? Because, like, you know what I mean? Like, of course, there's black doctors and stuff like that. And I would probably have to look up the number, like, of, like, what's the percent of black healthcare doctors, but also to know that, just like kind of helping my wife, like volunteer, like March of Dimes, when you talk about like high risk pregnancies, like African American women, like they're more susceptible to die during childbirth.
Yeah, man.
Than, you know what I'm saying, any other race and stuff like that. And so, like, I think, like, just even those type of things bring on distrust from a doctor and not wanting to go.
There is, I think this is an example of when people talk about systemic racism or systemic issues.
For sure.
Not sure, have you heard of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
I have not.
So, I got to go back and look at the dates, but basically what happened was there were doctors down in Tuskegee, Alabama, and they were doing an experiment around like syphilis and outbreaks and symptoms and all those different things. And basically they had tricked these men into, believing that, they were going to, be getting these benefits and these different things to go through this specific experiment, not knowing that they are being injected with syphilis.
What?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Yes, matter of fact, I'm gonna get some more details for it.
Yeah.
Cause I'm pulling this one out there. But yeah, I remember hearing it, and I was just as appalled as you were in terms of like what was going on. And then there were long lasting implications for those people in their family. So it was black males.
Okay.
It was between 1932 and 1972, and it was around about 400 African American men. And basically, what they were trying to get was, like I was saying, if you left syphilis untreated, like what would happen? What would be the effects? And these guys had no idea like what was going on. They didn't know that that's what they were signing up for. More than 100 of those men died. And then you got to think, some of them had families.
Yeah.
So they continue to, pass some of those things. Yeah. Some of those things down.
And not only the dying, well, let me take a moment to catch this. Not only the dying piece of that, but just think about like guys who didn't pass away. Like you probably broke up somebody's home. Mm-hmm. Because the wife gonna be like,
absolutely.
Like where
hey,
is what's going on?
Yeah,
and bro was like,
what's going on?
Hey, I go to work, I come home.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got that. You got pieces of like that that's going on. You got, the child care thing. That was something that I wasn't really in tune with, and it's just crazy how it played out, because I remember when we moved here to Arkansas, my wife was like, I don't want to have a kid here. Like the numbers were just horrible for black women.
We got a great
and
yes.
I was, as a man, I'm not as in tune with that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we ain't had no issues. And I'm not saying there was anything negligent or anything, but man, we ended up having a kid down here that passed away. Yeah. So it is, that is, scary. And there were things as we were trying to make those decisions in terms of, I remember her saying like, hey, I want to have a VBAC, which is, I'm sure our women that are watching know that means vaginal birth. But they just kind of shortened it to that. And they were basically saying, because of what she was going through and the fact that she already had a C-section, they were pretty much just like saying like, hey, no, we need to have a C-section. Yeah. And I'm sitting there right there listening to it. And so you can see how sometimes it's this bullying and, people who are, if you think about people who aren't as educated, blindly trusting doctors that they have the best interest in their heart. And it's not there. So I definitely think there are a lot of things in our community. And I think that's where a lot of that COVID stuff came from as well. Yeah. That COVID mistrust in terms of like, man, there are people that are much older than us that have seen these things, that were around when the Tuskegee syphilis experiment took place, that were around for a lot of these other things with doctors where they're like, man, I don't trust that. And it can be something that's good for you, but they're like, no, I don't trust that.
But how do we build that trust as a community? Because it's like, if you can't trust a doctor, who do you trust? Is it, what I'm saying? Like,
I think there's two pieces. I think not just, shining the light on us, but I think we're giving back in our own unique ways, right? So I think, me being a food scientist, you being a health coach, and in fitness, like, we need to see more people in those areas. Yeah. That, care about our people, that want to kind of bridge those gaps in the educational piece. And I think that's something I believe that we can help get there with the areas that we talked about. But it has to be some people who can be like, yeah, there's an issue here. And I know there are definitely already some that are out there doing those things. I think that's the tough part about where we are as a society today, right? Like, there's some people out there that are doing some brilliant things and serving their communities, but no one talks about that. Like, you don't see that on the news, right? You don't see that on social media. You see, hey, we out here killing people. We out here selling drugs. We out here, getting out in the club and doing popping bottles and listening to Sexy Red and all these things. Like, hey, no offense, nobody who like they Sexy Red, but I'm just saying, like, those are things that get the views and the airplay and all those different things. But I know that there are people out here doing similar things that we're doing, trying to educate the community, and I think that's part of what we want to help with this platform. But it has to be giving back. You know what I'm saying? Like, wanting to give back to your community and help.
So you mentioned, like, also too about your environment being a part of it.
Yeah.
We know, or we grow up, man, there's not a lot of Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of Crisp and Greens. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of those places. Like my hometown, man, we got a McDonald's, Taco Bell, Popeyes, we got a Subway. We do have a Subway. Okay. Then there's like a few pizza places, Domino's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then got a couple small, like, hometown type restaurants.
Okay.
But do you think where we live at in our environments play because they don't have access to some of that stuff? Like,
so what you're talking about is a food desert.
Yeah.
That's the terminology that they use. Food desert. Okay. If you think about a desert, it's barren. Mm-hmm. There's nothing out there. You think about, it's cactus, it's the little rolling things that's out there. A food desert is essentially a space where you don't have access to all the things that you talked about. So,
okay.
Fresh fruits, vegetables, whole foods. And if you think about it, and you look at a lot of the inner cities, or if you think about the places that are like very, very rural, that's what food deserts are.
Yeah.
That's, you got fast food, multiple liquor stores.
Multiple.
You know what I'm saying? Multiple. You got all, and it's right there. Yeah. It's, it's easy for people to access. They don't have to go on the other side of town to, buy this stuff. So that's definitely a piece of it when you start to look at the economic factors, right? So you start to think about, like, hey, I may not have a car to get 30 minutes across, town to go to Whole Foods, or I may have a car, but I don't have the money to fill up my gas tank to get over there.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely is, I know for a fact, because there is a terminology around it, that is a part of those, factors in terms of what's playing into our health, for sure.
And I think too is that piece you're trying to make the dollar stretch.
Yeah.
So even if I'm getting like government assistance for food, I can go get these just easy mac and cheese or something like that. For the low, you know what I'm saying? I can get something for the low versus paying a few extra dollars for grapes and fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. Like, I can go get these cheap meals because I'm trying to make that dollar stretch.
Yeah.
How do we, as a society, educate those people on, like, hey, just make small changes. You don't have to fill up your whole basket with nut grains and you know what I'm saying, all of that type of stuff, but seeking once a week, can you substitute a healthier meal versus all this processed food that you're eating?
To me, some of it is education of what's in the store. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you look at a supermarket and what's available, like how you're picking, what you're looking for. And I've seen exercises where people are like, hey, we're going to take $10 and we're going to go to these places and see if we can kind of put a meal together. I think if you look at Black people, we're one of the most brand loyal populations that are out there.
Okay.
So what I mean when I say that is, we kind of turn our nose down if it ain't a certain brand. So, like, now it's a little bit cooler, but and we was coming up, man, if you didn't have J's or certain things, like, and people talk about you.
Yeah.
Now people wear, New Balance. But if you was
everything
wearing New
back.
Balance
Yeah.
back in the day, if you was wearing, some of them, Asics, like, man, you was gonna get talked about.
Man, now I seen a young cat the other day in Hokas.
Yeah.
Like it's an expensive shoe, don't get me wrong, but it's not a
running
stylish
Joel,
shoe.
man, they're just so ugly, man.
It's not a stylish shoe, but like,
Man.
you see young cats wearing them now, man.
Absolutely. So when you think about brand loyalty, and for me, I think what is so cool about this is, we want to have the Coca-Colas, right, in our shopping cart. We want to have the Tyson chicken nuggets. We want to have the, Ragu spaghetti sauce. But I think it's really about helping them see there's other options that are very affordable. As somebody who used to work in private brands.
So I was going to say, but just like what you just said, like spaghetti sauce. Like, can you tell the people, like, there's very little difference in that Ragu versus that private brand spaghetti sauce? Like, Like, and what are certain foods that maybe, like, you would say, hey, man, you could actually go get this private brand versus...
Man, I think when you're talking about your staples, like if you're talking about chicken breast, Tyson versus like, man, a lot of times what people don't understand with private brands is they're using those same manufacturers.
Yeah.
Same, it's not that there's, hey, these set of suppliers that they're using and they're only with the brands that they have. And then there's a whole specific set of private branded suppliers. And there are a community of people who only do private brands. But in order to get the scale that these supermarkets need, a lot of times they're working with reputable brands that but because it is a private brand, they're not going to charge you that premium because it's not on that same level. But more often than not, they have the scale, so they have the negotiation skill to be able to come in and say like, hey, our brand maybe is not as, let's take pasta for sure, for short. Like our store brand at Alex's Supermarket, maybe it's not as well known as Barilla pasta, right? But we have more scale to sell that because we can sell it in all of our stores. Yeah. So the negotiation power with scale, when I say scale, that means how much of an opportunity you have for that supplier to be able to buy from you in terms of volume, then that gives them the negotiation power to say, hey, I'm going to charge you less to make your, Alex Supermarket pasta. And in turn for them charging us less, then I can charge that customer less. Yeah. And then we still can make a pretty good margin on that in the store. So that's really what it comes down to in private brands is if you think about like it's essentially you're buying things in bulk. Yeah. So if I went to you and said, hey, like what you would charge me for one pair of them Jordan 4s versus if I was like, man, I got a whole basketball team, like I need 30 of them. Yeah. More times than not, you're going to get a cheaper price. They're going to be like, oh man, you go buy 30? Like, let me knock something off of it. That's essentially how stores work. And the scales are so much larger. So there are a lot of things when you're talking about your core items, your proteins. Yeah. I think those are all good. When you think of I said pasta, I think that those things are good. I think it does. Some things are always going to be to taste, right? So for sure. They are charging less typically with that store brand. Yeah. So there are parameters they have in terms of and how they make the product. Yeah. And for some people, I think brand loyalty comes down to when you talk about stretching that dollar. I know if I buy Ragu and Tyson chicken and Hidden Valley Ranch for some salad. Yeah. Like I know my kids are gonna eat that, right? Yeah. So I know my money's gonna be well spent. Yeah. A lot of times you hear people are concerned about other brands, people that are brand loyal, because they're like, I don't have money for my family to waste. Yeah. So I don't have the luxury to just go try different sauces or try different pasta. If my kids are like, ugh, what is this? Like, I ain't eating this. And then it's like, man, like, I was expecting that meal to last maybe, for today it's some leftovers.
Yeah.
And then they don't even want to eat that.
Yeah, like, I'm glad you said that, because, like, you do have to have a little bit of, I guess, extra income to say, hey, man, I'm willing to try this.
Yeah.
And if my kid don't like it, or if I don't even like it, you know what I'm saying? Like, because some things, like, me and my wife might say, we want to try this, and then it was like, nah, that ain't it. Let's go get something else, versus like, no, like, this is our only meal. Yeah. We can't play around with it. So I think that does have an impact, as well as people who are trying to make their dollar stretch and don't have as much money to try new things or step outside of the box, because I can't waste a meal, like you just said.
Yeah.
Because, man, I'll tell you what, like, because certain foods cooked right, man, like, they could be hidden. Like, me and my wife, probably about a month ago, had date night, man. We went to Chronicles, and they had these buffalo sauce shiitake mushrooms. You would have thought they were boneless wings. Like, if you rock with boneless wings, you would have been like, oh, these boneless kind of like the boneless wings.
Right here. Okay.
But, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, also, too, like, learning how to cook these foods, too, as well, I think plays a part into the taste of it, and, like, willing to try. Because, like, one of my favorite dishes, man, it has no meat in it. Like, it's lentils, squash, purple onions, what else? Zucchini, mushrooms. But, like, my wife, like, has, like, soy sauce and other sauces she just kind of base and just toss it in, bro. So good. Yeah, so healthy too.
Okay. What you eat it with? Like, what is that? Is that just, does it go with anything like rice or?
Man, sometimes I do rice. Okay. And just sometimes that's all I need.
Because that's a lot of
meat. Yeah,
that's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah,
that'll get you. Now, where are you? I dropped something in there. Are you a leftovers guy?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. Like, I got a couple friends who kids don't eat leftovers. And I be like, hey, bro. If the wife ain't cooking, hey, hit me up, man. Like, I'll come scoop some leftovers up for sure.
Yeah, man. I think that's another thing too, man. Like, I think there's a lot of things we talk a lot on the podcast about trauma, right? And I don't think it's to denigrate anything that happened, in terms of how we grew up. Or anything like that, but there's some positives, right, that come out of that as well. And I think that leftovers for me, man, it's like my kids can kind of like, when we had leftovers growing up, like, you ate it until it was gone. Like, it wasn't like, okay, yeah, maybe one night and then I'm out of there.
2 days. Depending on how much she cook, you cook. You
was eating that spaghetti until it was gone, man.
Yeah.
You was gonna say it. So it's funny. Because when I met my wife, like, that was something that we kind of clashed on. Like, she was like, man, I don't eat no leftovers. I'm like, that'd be some of the best stuff. You start talking about some chili, like, and all it don't really fit.
To the next day. Like,
to the next day.
Yeah. Because that's how I feel about Thanksgiving food. I feel like it tastes the best the second day.
Yeah. And so I think the other piece of it is, like, it gives you that resourcefulness. And over time, like, she'd be like, okay, yes, certain things I'll eat, leftovers of, because I cook quite a bit. But yeah, man, I always like to see, like, man, are people down with leftovers or not, or kind of where they at, man. But and my dad loves it too, because he'll come over to the crib and it's leftovers galore.
Yeah.
And he'll just be like, man, I'm just going to eat all the things y'all got in your refrigerator.
It's new to me, yeah.
It's new to me. Let me come shopping in here, man. But, yeah, I definitely think, going back to what we're talking about, like, I think it's so much centered around our people not knowing these really industry secrets, right? And so how do we help people understand, like, man, you could really be... you being so brand loyal to someone you can be saving $50 a trip, or however many dollars a trip by, trying some of these things instead of that. And I think it really just goes down to, also when you look at it, like you said, doing a little bit at a time. Yeah. Like, I think what really bothers me are these people that are like, yeah, I had a whole wheat pasta and it was no antibiotics, no preservative, chicken with free range eggs, and it was organic spinach. And it's like, okay, do you have a certain lifestyle that can afford you that? But I think it's understanding, like, okay, well, we talked about, like, what's fluff? Like, what out of all that stuff I said that, seems pretentious, what is fluff? And what is, like, hey, if I had to pick out all those words that they really said, like, here's where I would start at in terms of building your meal around. Because again, I believe that, I don't believe that eating healthy, and for me, the word healthy, I don't like it because I feel like it's been stretched and used all over the place.
For sure.
It can mean different things to different people. I don't necessarily buy into it's more expensive. But that's just because I know more. And I think, to me, when people say eating healthy is expensive, when you're using all those labels I use.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're just saying, hey, based off of, if you want to have a chance of having a healthy life, having a healthy lifestyle, this is how you need to structure your meals. Then I think there's a way to get there. Even if you talk about, people don't understand this. When you look at frozen produce, people look down on that. Yeah. But quiet as kept, frozen produce is actually some of the best quality produce that you can have because it's frozen at its peak quality.
Okay.
So if you think about anything that's frozen, like, it stops wherever it was at in that time. If you got something fresh, like, man, you know how it is. Sometimes you get some of them, that fresh bag salad or that fresh spinach, like, that clock is ticking.
Yeah, for sure.
That clock is ticking, and don't let you. It had already been on the shelf for a little while, so then you still, like, once you open it, and that it starts to hit that air, like, it's a different ball game, man.
And it's funny that you said that, because, like, as we talk about these things, like, stuff clicks in my head, and, like, when you said, like, it's frozen at its peak, think about it, like, we'll freeze Thanksgiving food. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'm going to freeze this, man, because we don't really eat this too often. So it preserves it. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the word.
Yeah. And so it's like, why don't I even flip their brain to, like, oh, these frozen vegetables, not like, I ain't got to go get the fresh. I can go get the frozen. Yeah. Because they're preserved and still good. Like,
and they're cheaper.
Yes.
So we'll do it one time. We're going to do an exercise where, we go in the store, and we basically say, like, hey, let's get all of the, fancy and pretentious words that's out there and put that together and do the same thing with the same ingredients, but without all those words. And we'll be able to show the difference between what those bills are going to look like. But I feel like sometimes there's hidden agendas, with these different things in terms of, people are trying to prop up a specific industry, and different things that go around that. But if you're just saying, I build a meal off of, and this is probably taking it back, maybe showing our age a little bit, where they had the food pyramid. I know that they took that away. But if you go back and just look at, I think what maybe not common sense, but if you go back and just say, like, hey, I have protein. Now, we're not talking about, I'm guilty of this sometimes, but I'm just splurging on my eating sometimes. But we ain't talking about having, 16. We not talking about having 24 ounces of meat. Yeah. Way too much. Like, if we're being honest, there has been a serious boom in the overeating in America. Yeah. And you look at us, and you look at our counterparts in other countries. It's a big piece of it, man. We're not active enough. And then slowly but surely, we just get, out of control, with the portion size that we're eating.
So, to that, man, because I mentioned, like, early in the podcast, like, does genetics play a part in this? And there's there's been studies, and there's a part of our brain that controls like our appetite and hunger cravings. And essentially, like, studies say like your brain can go two ways when it comes to these things. There's a one part, it tells you to eat less, store less. These people tend to be more healthier, more leaner. And then the other part is the alternative, where it's telling you just eat more, store more. Now, there's been studies out there that says that the alternative route is chosen more. It's studies have seen it chosen more in the African American and Hispanic communities to eat more, store more. Do you think that comes from, I guess, where do you think that comes from? Like, cause I didn't get a chance to dive into it. Like, cause it says like your genes, cause it's usually saying your genes do play a part in your weight and how you made up. Like, for instance, like I'm shaped like my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like I might be a little more fit than my dad, but I look at my youngest son, Maverick. He's shaped just like us. I could even see it right down his forward. You know what I'm saying? Like I can see his shape looks just like our shape. So also too, and I know there's something, you know, like, so like, is it, I might just be born to be big boned. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, in the minute. But like, so they're saying like there's some studies behind it that says like your genetic makeup is telling you to go this way, to eat more, store more versus eat less, store less. Like,
I think genes do play. I mean, it's no different than like.
And I think hypothalamus. I think that's the part of the brain. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, like it affects other things like hormones, pituitary glands, and all that other stuff. But like in other functions of our body. But yeah, like essentially like talks about like controlling appetite and hunger. And so
I think it's no different than, you know, hey, two short people make a kid. Like, man, the chances of, like, I even look at my boys, I'm like, I'm sorry, like, I know y'all like all these sports, maybe God gonna so my running joke was like, before I even had kids, I was like, man, just me being silly, I was like, man, I'm gonna have a kid I'm gonna have a boy that's 6 foot. Man, look at that. Yeah. I would just keep saying it, man. Just, this was gonna happen. Now, my youngest, my middle child, Tristan, percentile wise, like, he's up there, so he might have a chance, because he's like, he's definitely over average. And always has been with the kids in his grade. But I say all that to say, like, I definitely think like there's some kids, even if we, you know, go to sports route, it's like, man, like certain kids that you got NFL people that's like, man, like they had a kid that played lineman like them. Like, and you see a lot of those things where it's like last night, like the draft. Like, but to your point, Marvin Harrison Sr., he's only about 5'10".
Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'3", 6'4". Like,
still slender though. Yeah. Still both slender. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there are pieces of that. Yeah. I think some of it goes, and I don't know. I know sometimes I can just kind of have this hardline mentality, but it's like, how do you reprogram do you just succumb to that and just say like, man, my mama was big bone, my daddy was big bone, like I'm just gonna be big bone? Or do you rewire some of that to try to fight against whatever the genetics are gonna put out there, knowing that there are some limits, right? There's only so much you can do with the genes that you have, right?
I'm a big component of rewiring.
Okay.
Like, I'm a huge component. I mean, like, that's why, like, that life coach mental health, like, piece of it is, like, I'm helping you retrain, like, how you're thinking as far as, like, your goals and stuff like that. Like, so I'm a huge component of rewiring, and not just saying, like, I'm accepting myself. Yeah. Especially if I'm unhappy with myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm about to do something about it. And like you said, you don't have to start off having to go to the gym 5 days a week, work out an hour and a half. It's, hey, go for a 15-minute walk. Start there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it starts there. Like, why, like, as we talk about like obesity and how do we rectify this? One, like I said, if you want to know your BMI, just like I said, that formula is weight divided by like your height, weight in pounds divided by height in inches squared times 703. But like I said, there are some nuances to that too, where people feel like I said, like I'm obese. I don't feel like I'm obese, but like my BMI would tell me that. So one, just knowing that, then like you said, educating yourself on the foods that you eat, and like go ahead and substitute like one day a week, man. Just start one day a week of eating a healthier meal. You know what I'm saying? Eating a healthier meal. Helping rewire your thoughts, like not just saying like I'm gonna be big forever. Like what your mind is so powerful. What you tell yourself, is what happens. You know what I mean? Like, and so like I'm a huge component of, man, like although my life might not be what I want it to be right now, I see it as something else.
Absolutely.
And so when I wake up, I don't see it as it is today.
Yeah.
I see it as I see
you had that vision.
Yeah. And so that's why that's important of seeing yourself. Like that's why vision boards are so important. Yeah. So popular. Like people might think like it's just a trend, but like seeing that, because of what you see and what you tell yourself, like this is who I'm going to be or what I want to be.
Right.
So when it comes to that health piece, like, hey, love yourself for who you are today, but also too, if you want to feel better about yourself, if you don't today, make those small changes. Start making those small changes.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely more in that bucket.
Yeah.
And I know some of it are, maybe I think for me it goes to mental strength, or, you know, maybe even tricking your mind. Like I know there's been times when me and the wife, like I've noticed that it's hard for her because I've always been a smaller person in terms of weight.
Yeah.
I ain't never had a gut or really nothing like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so to try to, I'm more of a self-starter. Like, so you know how like in the gym is people that like, some need trainers and some are like, no, I can take myself to a place to where I can push through things and put things in front of myself and go get the goals. Like that is more so me. Like if I be like, man, I'm feeling sluggish lately, or I ain't liking how I'm looking, like, man, I can turn the switch and be like, okay, I might have been eating crazy, but I'm gonna go and do this. And I feel like to support her it will be hard because I can go somewhere and eat 2 burgers and a fry and a shake, and I can be good. Now, not saying that I should do that, right? Like that's, you know what I'm saying? That's not, you know, how I should be eating, especially not all the time. But I'm going to be impacted a little bit less than if she tried it. But I notice that, like, I would have to kind of curb myself to be like, man, you want to go eat such and such? Because I may be working out and I may have earned that, but she may have not. And knowing that we've really, you know, grown together in terms of like expanding the types of foods and her eating, like, she'll tell me all the time, she's like, man, you the reason why I got fat, because, you know, you just got me eating all these things and taking me to all these different places and cooking. So I know that there are different types of people who maybe need a little bit more of that support and push. And then there's some people that's just like, man, they put something in front of themselves, they can go out there and get it. But I guess my question for you is to talk a little bit more about how maybe women, the struggles for women versus men, like what does that kind of look like based off of what you've seen, and maybe why they may struggle a little bit more when it around weight and losing weight. And
my novice opinion on this is, number one, women are more emotional. I mean, their genetic makeup is more emotional than men, and also too, they have so many more different like hormones that go, you know what I'm saying, that they deal with than men. You know what I'm saying? Like when women talk about like, you don't know how I feel like have a baby or even have a menstrual cycle, like what that does, you know what I'm saying to you? Like we don't go through those on a monthly basis to understand like how that affects us, our body, our mental. And so like, I think that plays a huge part of it. Just, they're made up a little different than we're made up.
Okay.
As men. So yeah, so I think that's my opinion on that. But also you touched on, like, I think also too, like, know yourself. Like, if you're a self-starter, cool, you know what I'm saying? Like, boom, like, you good. But hey, if you're not a self-starter, hey, call me.
Dapper dog, baby. We got you.
Or get you a trainer. You know what I'm saying? Like, get your trainer, get you an accountability partner, and get you a couple of them. Because one of them gonna flake on you. You know what I mean? Like, so make sure that, like, it's at least two. You got at least two, so that if one's flaking, you got another one that's say, hey, let's rock and roll. We still got going. So yeah, so knowing yourself, man, understanding your body. Like I said, man, going to get those routine checkups. Like, make sure you're understanding what's going on internally as well helps. So yeah, like I said, we're all made up different. So yeah, you can be skinny and unhealthy, you know what I'm saying? Just as well as you can be big and unhealthy. Or you can be big and healthy just because that's your genetic makeup.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so knowing your body and like those talking to doctors and understanding like, what does this mean? Now, even so, man, do your like, now don't WebMD or something like that. Like, get you a second opinion. How about that? Get your professional second opinion if you feel like your doctor, whoever, whatever professional you're going to see, you're kind of like iffy about it. You know what I mean? So yeah, like, love yourself. You know what I'm saying? But make sure you're healthy too. Because like you said, I think we've gotten so big on this spectrum of just accepting everything, and everything's not healthy.
That is that be my thing too, man. I ain't even gonna lie. What bothers me, man, is this, like, I don't know, maybe it's not for me. I'm probably gonna get a little bit backlash for this, but what's new, like, I feel like this whole, like, thick versus, like, you know, big bone, fat, whatever we want to call it, like, I feel like that's where some of that came from, because it's like, you got people out here talking about, yeah, you know, I'm thick, and it's like, no, no, you couple biscuits over that, man. You couple Popeyes biscuits over that, man. I'll say this, you know.
Yeah, we're joking.
I feel like that has been a thing to where, like you said, is because people feel like, okay, thick is in, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we just look at right now, if you look at social media, like when we was growing up, majority of women wanted to be skinny. To this day, I don't really know nothing about what those sizes are or what constitutes as it, but I know I can look at somebody and be like, okay, yeah, that's what that standard would have been. Now, you got everybody that's trying to be, you know, thick, you know, the bigger butts and all those different things, which is like, that's a whole different thing to get into in terms of our influence, our cultural influence
for sure.
On, you know, on culture, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it's what bothers me about this sometimes is us not always getting the credit, man.
Yeah.
So you got people walking around talking about, you know, Kim Kardashian and J-Lo, and it's like, we been popping. Like, our women, like, you go down in the South, like, they been popping.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In terms of, you know, what they had going on in the back. You know what I'm saying? And it even reminds me of, I don't know if you remember around Super Bowl time, they was trying to give Travis Kelce credit for the fade. Because, you know, he wear that, fade. Yeah. And there was an article about him popularizing it. And, you know, he's in tune enough to where I think they had asked him at the press conference about it. He was like, man, hey, I think it was around some black holiday too or something that they asked him. And he was like, man, y'all trying to get me in trouble. He's like, I didn't, you know, it's my brothers has been doing this for a long time. Yeah. Like, I didn't make this up. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's another thing in terms of how we influence the culture all the time, and people try to just look over us. But I think if you even look now, it just goes to that acceptance thing. Because I think, to me, if someone is saying you're thick, it's a compliment, right? Most times in our society, if I'm saying like, man, she thick, like I'm giving you your flowers, I'm acknowledging you, versus like if I say you fat, you know, like that ain't good. So I feel like it creates a somewhat of a delusion, because it's like, hey, if I'm just calling myself thick, but I'm making myself feel like, okay, I'm good where I'm at right now, instead of really looking in the mirror, looking at how your body is running and saying like, I may love myself, but if I want myself to be alive, I got to treat my body better. And I think that creates some of that, delusion. And to me, it's not a, it is about having some fun, but it's definitely not about body shaming, because like you said, when we say these things, we don't know what people are dealing with and while they're there. I think the message that we want to leave them with is make sure you're healthy with however your body looks, and be real with yourself. If you down bad and your numbers is down bad when you talking to the doctor, you got to do better so that you can be alive, man. It can't be all these things around, hey, I love myself. You don't want to be loving yourself and be dead.
Also, wait, don't think we're picking on you. You know what I mean? I understand that.
Not. It's some big bad men out there.
Yeah, and we gonna dive into that a little bit next episode too as well. So what's your closing points, man? I said one, understanding what's going on inside. Go see your doctor. Go get those physicals. Hey, I can't go to the gym 5 days a week, but I know what I can do. I take 10, 15 minutes to walk around my block every day. You know what I'm saying? Do some type of movement. And then, hey, start substituting a meal at a time. Like, I don't have to just change my whole menu or style of eating. Start with one day. You know what I mean? Like, one meal. Just start with one meal a day. To kind of rectify, like, getting healthier. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think for me, man, it really just comes down to, like you said, every time you sit down in front of some food, like, it's a choice of what you're going to do. And with anything, like if you think about electronics and coming up with new software, that takes time, right? So this takes time too. It's not saying like, hey, you could just go from just eating crazy to just full vegan and sure. It's gonna take some time, and don't beat yourself up about it. And then I think the biggest thing is be more particular about the media you're using to form your opinions around food. And again, this is obviously, I'm gonna promote us because I think we're well-rounded enough. I think we're credible enough with what we're doing. But we've said it from the beginning. Our thing is we don't have a side to pick. It's nobody that is putting money in our pocket. No. Saying like, hey, you need to get this message out. Like, we just genuinely want better for our community. So I would say to like, don't play into all these different things about what eating healthy looks like, because more times than not, it's not what they put out there, man. And I think the biggest thing is, I'll probably say it every episode, like, it's about us as people. So if you're a professional that's, touching food in any area, nutrition, dietitians, health coach, fitness trainers, food scientists, family health, general practitioners, you know what I'm saying, in terms of doctors, like, take out some of your time to help create a, ecosystem that our people can trust. Because I think that's the word that you really use. And I think that it comes down to a lot of people feel like there are ulterior motives. Like, there's people all the time that have tried to argue me up and down, like, oh no, these food companies are doing this. It's like, dude, like, I've done the job before. There was nobody that was standing over me saying, put that ingredient in there, Alex, and this is what you need to do. So I'm qualified to be able to tell you, like, a lot of that stuff that you're hearing are either, scare tactics or propaganda, or people who just don't know what they're talking about, man. So I think if you're professionals, if you're credible and qualified in these areas, find ways to give back to our communities. We got social media. If you want a platform to come and talk about this and help us get informed as well, hit us up, DM us, so that we can get you guys invited to the cookout and help with the community, man.
Yeah, because like my boy said, look, ain't nobody put money in our pocket.
No.
This is just us
No.
talking, you know what I'm saying? Invitation to the cookout is sponsored by Life.
Yeah.
Living in faith every day. That's what it's sponsored by Life right now, guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with us, man. See y'all next week or in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Couple weeks.
yeah.
Couple weeks. All right, man. Appreciate it. Yeah.